At 2:17 in the morning, Detective Lena Ward stood inside a windowless room that did not appear on any floor plan. The air smelled of cold plaster and old dust. In front of her, an empty wooden chair faced a camera on a shelf. Then her phone vibrated. A private account had posted a new photograph. It showed the same chair in the same room taken from directly behind Lena. The account had reached us through an anonymous submission, and identifying details in this telling have been altered. What mattered was the question inside that image. If the room was empty, who had just taken the picture? Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this so far, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. 6 days earlier, the room meant nothing to anyone. Elena Vale was 29 and lived alone in apartment 5B of Bracken House, in the coastal town of Bracken Harbor, Maine. She restored damaged audio for museums and small archives. Friends said she could hear a loose wire before anyone else noticed the hum. She kept lists on paper, watered a stubborn basil plant every morning, and called her younger sister Mira every Sunday. Elena was careful without being fearful. She liked old buildings because they carried history. She just never expected one of them to listen back. Bracken House had begun as a hotel in 1926. Decades of renovations had turned guest rooms into apartments and hallways into sealed walls. Elena moved in during early October. The rent was low, the ocean was visible from her fire escape, and the building manager, Silas Dorn, seemed almost overly helpful. He carried her boxes, replaced a loose lock, and warned her that old pipes made strange sounds after midnight. Elena laughed about it with Mira, but during her first week, she began noticing tiny changes. A cupboard door left open, a chair angled toward the hallway, a radio unplugged from the wall. Elena blamed herself until the recording. She had left a microphone running overnight to capture the building's low mechanical hum for a restoration project. At 2:17 a.m., the waveform changed. First came Elena's own footsteps crossing the bedroom. 3 soft steps. Then, after a pause, came 4 more from the living room. Heavier, slower. Elena was asleep during both sounds. She replayed the file until sunrise. There were no voices and no door opening. Only footsteps, followed by a faint 3-note chime that sounded like an elevator arriving on another floor. Mira wanted her to call the police. Elena said she needed something clearer than noises and moved furniture. Instead, she built a quiet record. Every night at exactly 2:17, she photographed the apartment from a different angle. She stored the images in a private account that only Mira knew about. If Elena failed to cancel a scheduled upload, the account would begin publishing 1 image each night. It was not meant to attract strangers. It was a safeguard. Elena also placed thin strips of removable tape across the closet frame and marked the position of objects with pencil dots too small to notice from across the room. On Thursday evening, Elena missed a dinner reservation with Mira. Calls went unanswered. Mira reached Bracken House just after 9 and found apartment 5B locked from the inside. Silas opened it with a master key while 2 neighbors watched. Elena's coat hung by the door. Her wallet, phone, and shoes were still inside. A kettle had boiled dry, leaving a dark ring in the bottom. The basil plant lay broken on the kitchen floor. Security video showed Elena entering the building at 6:42 p.m. No camera showed her leaving. The closet tape was gone. Police treated the apartment as a disappearance scene. The locked door suggested Elena had either left through an unknown route or someone with access had staged the room. Attention first turned to Noah Price, a former boyfriend. A neighbor had heard them arguing 2 weeks earlier, and Elena had deleted a message from him the day she vanished. Noah admitted the argument. He said Elena believed someone was entering her apartment, and he had accused her of letting work and lack of sleep distort ordinary sounds. His answer made him look dismissive. It did not make him guilty. Still, investigators spent the next day proving that Noah's alibi held. He had taken an overnight bus to visit his father, and multiple cameras placed him 3 hours away before Elena disappeared. The deleted message was an apology. He had written that he should have believed her. That dead end changed the tone of the case. Investigators stopped asking whether Elena had imagined the intrusions and started asking who benefited from making her doubt herself. Then the locksmith found something stranger. The cylinder in Elena's front door was new, but one duplicate key from the replacement set had never been returned to its sealed envelope. At 2:17 the following morning, Myra's phone alerted her to the first scheduled upload. The image showed Elena's living room before the disappearance. Nothing looked dramatic. The chair faced the window. The radio sat on its shelf. But the photograph had been taken from knee height, as if someone had crouched beside the closet. A second upload came the next night. This time, the chair had shifted 6 inches. Police initially thought the account might be an elaborate message from Elena. Mira knew better. Elena had scheduled the posts before she vanished. The images were evidence from the past, arriving in the present. A crime scene analyst enlarged the first 2 images. Dust around the chair legs proved the furniture had moved between them. More important was the wall behind the closet. In one photograph, an electrical outlet sat almost flush with the trim. In the next, it appeared farther away. The lens had not changed. The wall had. Investigators measured apartment 5B and compared it with the exterior dimensions of the building. Nearly 4 feet of space were missing along the entire hallway side. Silas said it was probably an old ventilation gap. The original blueprints called it something else. Service passage B. Silas remained calm. He explained that the service passages had been sealed during a fire code renovation decades earlier. He handed over keys, maintenance logs, and copies of newer plans. He even suggested police remove Elena's closet wall. Behind the plaster they found brick. No door. No pasillo. For several hours, Silas appeared to have been right. Then a junior officer noticed the bricks were clean. Everything around them held years of dust, but the mortar had been disturbed recently. A thermal camera showed a narrow cold space beyond. Someone had built a false barrier inside a false wall. The third scheduled image arrived before the wall could be opened. It showed Elena's radio close enough to reveal scratches on its metal casing. An audio specialist examined her overnight recording again. The 3-note chime was not an elevator arriving. It was the elevator's maintenance signal, a sound normally heard only inside the machinery corridor. The building's passenger lift had been shut down every night at midnight, but an older freight system still existed behind the laundry room. Its controls did not appear on the modern plans. Silas had never mentioned it. Police cleared the laundry room and pulled away a bolted storage rack. Behind it stood a narrow metal gate. The old freight lift descended below the listed basement level. At the bottom, officers found Service Passage B. It ran through the building like a second spine, with access panels behind several apartments. One panel opened into the cavity beside Elena's closet. On a shelf lay spare keys, copied maintenance schedules, and small objects taken from tenants. The passage explained the footsteps. It explained the moving chair. But Elena was not there, and Silas could no longer be found. The hidden corridor made Silas the obvious suspect, but it also created a new problem. The first anonymous tip about the freight lift had arrived hours before police found it. The message claimed Elena had fled voluntarily and used the passage to avoid the cameras. It directed investigators toward the bus station. For a moment, the theory fit. Then Mira recognized a phrase in the tip. "Old buildings keep their own hours." Silas had said those exact words while helping Elena move in. Whoever sent the message knew the corridor existed and wanted police looking anywhere except inside it. The fourth upload changed the search again. Elena had photographed a mirror above her desk. At first, it seemed like another empty room image. In the reflection, however, a thin vertical line divided the closet wall. It was the edge of an access panel before someone covered it with new trim. Elena had seen it. She had also placed her portable recorder on top of the closet, where it continued capturing sound after she disappeared. Officers recovered the device inside the passage. Most of the file was muffled movement. Near the end, Elena tapped the microphone in a deliberate pattern, then whispered one word, "Harbor." Bracken Harbor had dozens of warehouses, boat sheds, and vacant offices. Harbor was not enough. Investigators listened beneath Elena's whisper. A foghorn sounded twice, then once. Metal cables knocked against a hollow mast. Every 40 seconds came a low mechanical shudder. The harbor master identified the horn pattern as the eastern breakwater. Only 3 abandoned properties lay close enough to hear it clearly. One was a former ferry office owned by a company Silas had used during the apartment renovation. Police obtained a warrant. By then, rain had turned into a coastal storm, and the final scheduled upload was less than an hour away. Inside the ferry office, the front rooms were empty. Dust covered the desks. The power had been disconnected years earlier. Yet the low shudder from Elena's recording continued beneath the floor. Officers followed it to a locked utility door at the rear. Behind that door, a generator fed electricity into a converted records room. The room contained bottled water, blankets, and a camera pointed at a chair. It was the room from the first scene. Elena was not in the chair, but on the concrete floor, she had drawn a small arrow in dust, pointing toward a cabinet that appeared too shallow for the wall behind it. The cabinet concealed a second door. Beyond it was a narrow storage bay. Elena was there, alive, exhausted, and conscious. She had heard officers enter but was afraid the footsteps belonged to Silas. The tapping on her recorder had been intentional. Elena knew the breakwater horn from her fire escape and hoped someone would identify it. She also explained the photographs. The scheduled posts were not random. Each one highlighted a detail she believed proved someone was entering through the wall. She had designed her own evidence trail before she knew how urgently it would be needed. The rescue did not end the danger. Elena warned officers that Silas had left less than an hour earlier and always returned before the generator ran out. Police moved her to safety and darkened the building. At 2:16, headlights crossed the rain outside. Silas entered through a side door carrying a fuel can. He reached the records room, saw the empty chair, and stopped. The camera's small red light was still on. This time, it was recording for investigators. Silas tried to retreat, but officers arrested him in the corridor without anyone being hurt. At 2:17, the final scheduled photograph appeared. The last image showed Elena's desk before her disappearance. On it sat a photograph of Bracken House taken during renovation. In an upper window stood Silas, watching the apartment that would later become 5B. The picture proved Elena's suspicion had begun earlier than anyone realized. Silas eventually admitted using the hidden passages to enter apartments and manipulate tenants by moving ordinary objects. He wanted them uncertain, isolated, and easier to control. Elena had discovered the access panel and confronted him. He took her to the ferry office to prevent her from exposing the corridor. The anonymous tip was his attempt to turn her preparation into evidence against her. Silas was convicted of kidnapping, unlawful surveillance, burglary, and related offenses. The court record showed that Elena was not the first tenant he had frightened, but she was the first to document the pattern before he could erase it. Bracken House was closed for inspection. Workers uncovered access panels behind 9 apartments. Several former residents came forward with stories of missing objects, unexplained sounds, and the feeling that rooms had changed while they slept. What each person had dismissed as stress became part of the same design. The case was solved because Elena trusted the small details everyone else could have called meaningless. Months later, Elena returned to audio restoration in a new apartment with solid walls and no shared maintenance space. She kept the final photograph not as a reminder of Silas, but as proof that observation can become protection when someone takes it seriously. Mira deleted the private account after saving the evidence. Bracken House never reopened as housing. Its corridors were stripped to brick, and Service Passage B was sealed where everyone could see it. The room had never been truly empty. It was only framed to hide the person controlling what others could see. What detail would have made you suspect the wall first? If you enjoyed this case, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unsolved stories.